Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome into yet another live show here on a wonderful Sunday afternoon. I think round one of the NHL draft just finished, so we'll maybe talk a little about the draft here today, but mostly going to talk Iowa and the Minnesota Wild as well. So we'll introduce our special guest here in a second, but let's get to the man that makes all the magic happen. He's been following the NHL for over 60 years. He's traded barbs with Sid Hartman, with Pat Micheletti, with Kevin Fallness, and plenty of others. Ladies and gentlemen, Denny Barlow.
Welcome to the show, and thank you from What the Hell Are You Smoking? A little different today. We're going to have JeremyMcDude on today. I've been following him for over a year now, and he has as much knowledge about Iowa as anybody I know, and pretty much agree with everything he says. So instead of me talking about reading graphs and statistics on Iowa, I'm going to have somebody who really knows what the hell they're talking about. And with that, here's JeremyMcDude from Discord. Jeremy?
Well, Seth kind of knows who I am. We talked about this, I think, last year during off season. So I've had a little bit of time to talk about this, but yeah, I pretty much can't. I don't want to drive 5 hours to go to NHL games, and the Iowa Heartlanders are like an hour away up north, and Iowa Wild are 2 hours away in Des Moines. So it's pretty much easier for me to go to minor league games, and it makes sense to me that the entire state is affiliated with Minnesota. So that's kind of where things stand as far as that goes.
There you go. So give us your impressions of what do you see with the Heartlanders and with the Wild. Let's get the lowdown.
As far as the Heartlanders go, they managed to get to the playoffs for the first time in their entire existence, which it's a pretty short existence, 4 seasons so far. But first time in the playoffs after 3 just slogs of seasons is a pretty big accomplishment. And for a new coach that came in the second year, I mean, pretty big accomplishment for him. Unfortunately, he decided that he is going to make a move to Des Moines, not to the Iowa Wild, mind you, but to the Des Moines Buccaneers of the USHL, which means that they had to find a new coach. And then for what it's worth, the Iowa Wild also had to find a new coach because Brett McLean decided he was going to be an assistant over in Seattle or Vancouver. I forget which one it was. Vancouver. I knew it was up in that area. So they had to find a new coach, and honestly, I'm quite genuinely happy with the picks that they made as far as coaching is concerned. So for the Iowa Heartlanders, they picked Chuck Weber, who has just a long history of pro coaching. He was a video coach with the Orlando Solar Bears in the late 90s, assistant with a bunch of different teams in the ECHL and Milwaukee in the AHL. And then he had a tenure as head coach with Cincinnati that led to 2 championships under his belt. So that, to be fair, was 20 years ago at this point, but still, I think he's got the ability. I think he's got what it takes. He was coaching the British men's World Cup team for the last 3 or 4 years. Looks like the last 3 years. So he's been coaching the UK team for the last 3 years, and then he's also been with RPI in the NCAA. So it's not like he hasn't been at least getting his stay as a coach and actually keeping with everything. Now, if we move to the Iowa Wild side, they picked up Coach Greg Cronin, who was recently coach of the Anaheim Ducks. And that, to me, actually says something because the Anaheim Ducks have not been I don't know what you want to call it, the bottom feeders of the West like they were the last few years. I actually thought they had a chance to make the playoffs this year, but clearly it was kind of a small chance, and then they didn't really do much with it. But you can tell that he's been trying to get that team going, and he actually helped quite a bit. And then he was also recently head coach of the Colorado Eagles when they first moved to the AHL until the last 2 years of play. And that Colorado Eagles team never missed the playoffs, never got lower than 5th in their division, in a 10-team division, mind you, because the AHL's division system is completely screwed up. But I just every coach both coaches that I've seen have been, I don't know, on paper they look like they could do a really good job here in Iowa, both in the ECHL level and the AHL level.
I agree with you. I like Cronin as a pick for the coach. Seth and I talked about this last week. He coaches up, and he gives guidance, and that's what Iowa sort of lacked the last couple of years. As far as I'm concerned, McLean was in way over his head, as I mentioned several times.
I mean, he's never been a head coach until the last 2 years. So
Yeah,
and it showed. Better for him to be an assistant.
I liked a lot of what Cronin said in his introductory press conference. So even just things as saying like we want to get players that are playing well visibility is just, it's an interesting way to kind of put, like, we want to make sure that the Minnesota Wild see what these players are doing. So if they need to make a call up, they have multiple options, and predictable development was another interesting phrase that he used. It seems like a guy that has a plan as to how to get players to the NHL level and to get them ready, because as we've seen with this team over the last couple of years, there are going to be a few players that get called up from this roster, at least.
Oh, absolutely. Hopefully to stay. Did either of you catch Billy's podcast from the Wild? He said he's looking for impact players from the Minnesota Wild farm organization. He wants them not to just come up, but to play.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Well, here's something. I look at the roster for the Colorado Eagles from 18 to 19. I can see, I don't know how many different players that are still playing in the NHL right now from just that first year that he was coaching in Colorado. And Logan O'Connor was one of them. Let's see. Tyson Jost, we saw him here in Minnesota. You guys,
Yep.
I don't know. Dominic Toninato, I think he's in the NHL still.
Yeah.
With Winnipeg. And then, I mean, some of these guys I don't believe are like full-time NHLers, but still, it's like the amount of players that are still under NHL contract, at least from just that first season of him coaching. It tells me a lot that he's trying to get players from the AHL into the NHL.
Well, it shows that he's coaching the players up, and that's very important because, a lot of coaches aren't good at coaching up, and he seems to have the gift. And I got to give my hats off to Bill. I think it's a good pick. I think he's learned the error of his ways with his buddy now up in Vancouver. That's a good thing because, the Minnesota Wild, Iowa Wild are ranked number 2 for talent in the AHL. And since Jud Bracket has taken over doing picks, they've never been worse than 10th. They've been second twice, and once they were first. So my deal with Jud Bracket is I'm going to be talking about next here. Just gives you an idea how good Jud Bracket is with his picks. Is I got a bunch of good picks, picks of futility, you might say, from the Minnesota Wild organization from 2004 all the way up to 2011. And unbelievable how poor they were. I mean, geez, I scratch my head now when I think about it. But yeah, I'm all on board with Cronin. Anything, any special players you want to talk about, Jeremy?
Well, there'd probably be a couple, and one of them we talked about, you and I, on Friday, is a lot of the defense, a lot of the blue lines is pretty much set. You know, Faber, Middleton, Spurgeon, Brodin, those are kind of your top four, and they're never going to move unless they actually get moved. Bogosian's probably going to be that third pairing with Boyum, most likely. But then you've also got to think they brought up Juracek. You know, he's got to get some time in the NHL. And that's kind of the reason that he moved from Columbus, because he was getting basically no time in the NHL. They'd bring him up and they'd sit him in the press box for games on end. But one of the guys that I think I really liked and really like his play from last season, and just a doghouse of a season last year, is Carson Lambos. And he, to me, feels like one of those players that you don't see very often, because nowadays you get offensive defensemen up the wazoo, and you don't really get those defensive guys. And Lambos really shows me that he's one of those really good guys on the defensive side of the puck. And credit to him, because that team just could not keep the puck from going out of their net, from going into their net, I should say. Looking at the AHL's standings, they had a negative 50 goals differential. So they could score. They could score, but they got scored on 50 more times than they scored. So it was just, and a lot of it too was like teams just passing cross ice, getting it straight through players' legs, no one picking up passes, going from circle to circle and then ending up in the back of the net because the goalie can't cross between posts that fast. And that was part of the problem. Goaltending was kind of an issue, but I wouldn't say it was the main issue with this team. Jesper had a bit of a pretty bad season. And one of the things I think that hurt Jesper was literally people running him down as many times as they could. There was at least 2 times last season that I think Jesper got absolutely trucked in his crease. And one time specifically that almost ended up in a fight. But the refs got in there right before anything could happen. And then, let's be real, there was also that incident early on in the season against Grand Rapids that led to Adam Raska getting rear naked choked. So there was a lot of crazy stuff in the Iowa Wild season last year that just, I don't know if you can really say, especially for a second-year head coach, there's not much you can really. You just got to figure it out on the fly, and clearly Brett McLean was having issues with stuff like that, and then also.
So tell me, please expound upon that, because I don't know anything about it. I watched
the Adam Raska thing. Oh, so I don't remember. I didn't watch this game, but I watched the tape, or I watched the playback. They were playing in Grand Rapids, and I need to find the player who did it. There was like a big scrum that happened, and then who was it? Jeez, is he not even on the roster anymore for Grand Rapids? He's a player with Detroit, I'm almost certain.
Okay.
But one of the Grand Rapids players got Raska on the ground, and Raska's kind of a fighter. He's kind of one of those pesty guys, and one of the one of the players for Grand Rapids decided he was going to get on the back of Adam Raska as he was on the ice and start basically choking the guy. It was kind of insane to see that in a hockey game of all things, because even with the amount of fighting that happens in hockey, it's kind of rare that you see someone pulling a wrestling move on somebody else on the ice.
Huh. Interesting. So, where do you see the Iowa Wild finishing this year by looking at what they have so far?
From what they have, it's going to be a lot of the same team.
Right.
Goaltending wise, they have Hlavy. I can't pronounce his name. I don't think anyone can. And
Who
then
I really like.
I really hope that William Rousseau becomes a fantastic addition to the AHL roster, because down in the ECHL, he was one of the best goalies I think I had ever seen in Coralville up to that point. I mean, there's been some pretty good goaltending, but William Rousseau was something special to watch. And it's kind of crazy because Canadian goaltending has not really been the thing for the last few years. Yeah, you can say, because look at the world, the Four Nations face-off.
Right.
And you saw what Canada had as far as goaltending was concerned, and people were giving them hell for it. Well, clearly they ended up winning because of said goaltending, but that's neither here or there. But William Rousseau tells me that Canada can still at least produce good goaltending, at least at the minor league level. And I know William Rousseau is going to be a fantastic addition between the pipes in Iowa. Hopefully it actually progresses further than that, but I have no idea. As far as players to watch for the rest of the team, obviously Carson Lambos, if he's down in the Iowa Wild system again, it's probably just because there's too many guys in the blue line that are just taking the spots away. I got to do it because I'm a homer a little bit. I'm hoping to see some more out of Luke Toporowski. He was born in the Quad Cities. His dad played hockey for the Quad Cities. I watched him as a kid. So I'm hoping he does well, but I'm not entirely sure. I hope we don't see Liam Ogren, because that would suck for Ogren's sake, and that would suck for the young guy's sake. As far as I know, though, we're probably going to end up seeing Rasmus Kumpalainen. He just got signed recently. Riley Heidt, I don't know if he's going to end up. Is he going to end up in the NHL roster, do you think? Because he didn't end up in the NHL roster, and they had to keep him down in the OHL, I believe, is where he was playing.
Yeah, so he was not able. He was only eligible for either a return to, I forget the Canadian league that he was in.
OHL.
Yeah,
Ottawa
thank you.
67.
He was only able to go there or the NHL roster.
That's that weird rule where if you're 19, you can't move to the minor leagues.
I don't understand how that works. It's like, well, you're not old enough for the AHL, but hey, if it works out that you can go to the NHL, why not? I would imagine he'll be at Iowa the whole season. Maybe depending on how the season goes at the end of the year, maybe he gets a call up, but I think the Wild want for him to get to Iowa, play the full season there, and see how things go.
That's similar to probably what they thought with Hunter Height. And Hunter Height, he was a really good forward too. He was one of those guys that could go on heaters, and I think he got at least 2 hat tricks over the course of the season last year. So if he can produce consistently, I think he'll be a really good shot at the NHL in the future as well.
Well, the one thing I know about Riley Heidt is this. He needed to get bigger and stronger. He had to go through what I call the Rossi routine, where you have to gain 15 pounds of muscle so that you can keep the puck, because his problem is you get checked off the puck too easy. And that's just because of lack of strength. And if he's done the Rossi routine, I look for him to be in the Wild this year because that kid's got more shake and bake than anybody I've seen in a long time. He's my surprise pick for the Wild by half season, by the All-Star break, I think. Well, we'll see. It all depends on how he does, of course.
And as far as the Iowa Wild's concerned too, a lot of the contracts need to be re-signed because there's a lot of UFAs that haven't been brought back either. So
Yeah,
that'll also change how the roster looks come October. So
one question I had for you is regarding the captain situation down there. I know Dakota Mermis was the captain for a few years and then got called up and played basically the whole season with the Wild. Do you think that has been a factor of why the team just seems a little rudderless the last couple of seasons? And do they need maybe more of a vet to fill that role?
Well, if I remember right, I think it was Ben Jones. No, it was Cameron Crotty who was the captain. So Cameron Crotty, I don't think he ever really touched the NHL this last season. So he was down in the AHL for the entire year, and he was the captain of the team. And it's not like the NHL because players move around so much that having a stable captain might not be something you can have. There's some teams where they have a player that the team itself has signed that they've made captain. A lot of that happens at the ECHL level, but you just really can't do much as far as keeping a captain around, especially in Minnesota's situation when injuries kick the crap out of you for half the season. So it's kind of difficult when you don't have a stable group. But I mean, Cam Crotty was down in the Iowa Wild for the whole season, and they basically did the exact same thing that they did the year before, which is not much.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, any parting words before we end the segment?
Not really. Just
Okay. Well, JeremyMcDude, thank you so much for coming on and giving us some insight to the Iowa Wild and the Heartlanders. And let's do this again once the team gets put together, so we have something official to talk about. All right?
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jeremy, and I'll talk to you later. See ya. He is a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody follows him on Discourse, but he is really very much in tune with the Iowa Wild. Yeah, so now, moving on. Now, last week I was going to talk to you about Jud Bracket and why I think he's the best. And what I did is I went over the last 25 years of picks. And no, I'm not going to say them all because that's ridiculous. But I'm going to give you some picks that were just unbelievably bad. And you might remember some of them. I don't know. I would hope so. But, when the Wild started in 2000, their very first pick was third, and that was Gabby. And that's the best pick they ever did in 23, 22 years.
That worked out okay.
Yeah, Gabby was a special player. But after that, it was just a train wreck. And I'm just going to go over some of these with you before I get to Jud Bracket's phenomenal. I don't know what he looks at and how he judges players when they're 17, 18 years old, but he does an extremely good job. So here we go. The very worst pick by the Minnesota Wild was Benoit Pouliot in 2005. He was the 4th overall pick. And guess what he did? Nothing. He was a bust. Big time bust. And then you go to 2006. 9th overall pick, James Shepard. Yeah. Our first pick, 9th overall, another big time bust. Then you go to 2007, Colton Gillies. Another big time bust. And the list just keeps going. 2008, his 23rd pick, Tyler Kuma. I don't know if any of you remember because he wasn't around very long. I mean, and these are our top picks. And then, let's see, in 2004, it was A.J. Thielen and some Russian kid, I can't pronounce his name, with the 12th overall pick and the 42nd, and they never saw the time of day. None of them could skate. And this seems to be the common theme back then. They took big players that couldn't skate. And who does that remind you of? And then it goes on. We got Zach Phillips in 2011. Here's a 28th overall pick. Never saw the light of day. Kyle Wang in 2001. Never saw the time of day. Patrick O'Sullivan in 2003 is the 56th pick. And guess who they passed on? David Backus from Mankato. I mean, there's a whole list of players that they could have picked, but that one stuck out to me because I remember when he was at Mankato State, he was just a beast. But back then, they weren't picking Minnesota players at all, if you remember. And in 2010, Brett Ballmer. It's the 39th overall pick, never saw the light of day. So you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of the top draft picks that never made the team. And you can't have your top picks going down like that. I mean, maybe 1 out of 10 times you get a bust, but every year it was a bust. And that was a real problem. And that's why my hat's off to Jacques Lemaire, because he didn't have much talent on that team. And when he revived the 1-3-1, the trap, and he brought it up here, he did the most of what he had to work with. And you got to give your hats off to him because when he left, the team just fell apart because they had no talent, because they weren't picking anybody. Which brings me back to Jud Bracket. Since he's been here, our AHL affiliate has never been ranked lower than 10th. And he just keeps making the right picks. Now, the one thing I can say is that Hines doesn't play the kids, and our farm team is basically a farm team for other teams because they don't ever call them up to play, and hopefully that changes now. But only Rossi, who we picked, is actually playing. All the rest, nothing's happening. And that's not a good culture to build in Iowa, when no matter how well you do, you're not going to get called up. You're not going to get a shot. It just, it's not good for the locker room. And hopefully with our new coach, all this changes. Because Jud Bracket just keeps bringing up the players. I mean, I can't tell you one way or another about this year. I mean, you know, I got to trust Jud, but who knows how much Billy's getting involved again. Because I really think Billy is getting involved he's involved with the coaching, you know, and him and John Hines are good buddies, and hopefully that changes. Which brings me up to our last segment. Kaprizov. Kaprizov is in a very interesting situation right now. Not only is he up for, you know, getting re-signed and everything. But I'm trying to look at ways that we can get Kaprizov more involved with the team. And I would really like fans, if you have any ideas, leave them in the comments if we don't get to them. But I would like to see Kaprizov in some kind of position where he can okay something or not okay it. Hopefully the coach, I mean, that will probably never happen. But Kaprizov's in a position right now, he can tell Billy, this is what I want, and if you don't give it to me, I'm not re-signing. And, you know, Billy really is on the hot seat. If you look at all the comments from all the podcasters, everybody who loves the Wild, they're not happy right now. And this is the perfect time for Kaprizov to take advantage of that. So if anybody's got any ideas on how we can get Kaprizov more involved with a vested interest in the Wild, I want to hear it, because I can tell you this, the NHL ban when Mario Lemieux bought Pittsburgh, you know, he was still a player. Well, you can't do that no more. You can't make any kind of deals financially in the NHL because of that. And there's a few instances. Philadelphia had one too, but right now he's in the perfect position to tell Billy what he wants. And I really like everybody's thoughts on what can we provide Kaprizov with for thoughts on how to present this to the Wild for re-signing. I'm not worried about them re-signing him. You know, this is Kaprizov's team. Whether Spurgeon's a captain, it doesn't matter. And I just want something so that he has some authority with the Wild on what's going on. And anybody got any ideas? Let's hear them.
Well, I can lead off because
Okay.
I think the new collective bargaining agreement is going to have a major say in this.
Okay.
If a player, Michael Russo's latest article had this to say: if a player entering the final year of his contract extends before June 30th, 2026, then he is eligible to sign an 8-year extension with his current team.
All right.
If it happens after that, if it happens after June 30th, 2026, he can only re-sign for 7 and would only be able to sign for 6 years on the free agent market. That's the new collective bargaining agreement that is going to be going into effect for the 2026-2027 season.
Right. And that's good for the players, not for the teams. With the cap going up and up, look what Marner's doing. He's saying he's only going to sign a 2-year deal because the cap goes up in 2 years and he wants a brand new deal. It's not good for the teams. It's good for the players, though. Although I did read that he's signing Toronto signed to an 8-year deal, a sign and trade to Vegas is coming up shortly. And knowing Vegas, I believe it. I mean, I don't know how they do it, but they do it.
Well, there may be some tampering involved with that.
Well, you think they haven't done that before?
I was listening to Elliot Friedman, and he said that if this doesn't play out this way, that Toronto may be looking at some tampering charges against the Vegas Golden Knights for improper contact with Mitch Marner.
Wow.
So
that would be a first. Because, you know, Vegas gets away with everything.
Mm-hmm.
They're a sweetheart team. And, you know, look at the LTI, how they use it. They never get any guff about it. And, well, we'll see what happens. So what are your inputs? So what do you think of the draft so far? You got any thoughts? Oh, why don't you talk about that player? that you
Yeah.
picked, that they picked. Yes.
So it's a good thing that I did a few of those draft profiles, because Carter Klippenstein, who I did a profile on, ended up getting drafted. Now, he got drafted in the 4th round, so not 2nd round like I was looking at, but that's kind of fun. I'm going to do a more full in-depth reaction episode later today, talking about the Chisholm trade and Jonas Brodin getting hurt again too.
Yeah, I almost think that's a muscle tear or a muscle pull, something like that.
Well, whatever it was, it necessitated surgery.
Yep.
So he will.
And he's not going to be ready at the beginning of the year either, I guess.
No. Which means that I think Zeev Boyum, David Juracek, and Carson Lambos will all be making the team out of camp.
Absolutely. I hope so. God, I hope so. Which brings me up, I made a comment to Daily Face-Off to Frank Saravelli and Greg, is it? I'm sorry, I forgot his name. And out of the whole podcast, the only one they answered was me. And they left it open-ended. So, and what I was talking about was the CBA contract. Did they address the slew foots, the cross-checking with intent to hurt, and of course, the refereeing? And I'm going to write back a very pointed deal on, because you all know how I feel about the refs. I think a lot of them are on the take now. It's happened before and it's happening now. No team is happy with the refereeing. And, it's got to change. There has to be accountability. Did they address it? No. So we're going to get more of the same, unfortunately, because, hockey's such a beautiful game. When they shoot, skate, when they do the way hockey's supposed to be. And when you get trying to hurt people out on the ice, it's a terrible thing. Now, I remember, I started watching hockey. Players didn't have helmets. And a lot of people were bitching that they really would like to, have helmets, because the game was getting so fast, the players were getting so big. And then, of course, our Minnesota North Star got checked, hit his head, and died on the ice. Now, I don't know if anybody remembers that, but I do. And that's what it took for the NHL to install headgear, is a death. And when you think about slew foots and what could possibly happen, going face forward into the boards on a slew foot with no protection, that's not a good thing. And that could really happen. That's why slew foots have to be banned, period. If they did that, and if they banned a player, you would never see it again. But I guess it doesn't mean that much to them, because they didn't address it. But I'm going to get Saravalli's input on it when I write him back. But it was pretty cool to be the only one that they wrote back to was me. It's a nice gesture, and I appreciate it.
I may have to do an episode where I just read through the collective bargaining agreement, or maybe I have ChatGPT summarize it for me, because there are some interesting provisions in there. For instance, we're going to an 84 game season in 2026-2027, 4 preseason games, which it seems worthless, and plenty of other provisions. Like the contract stuff is big. They're capping bonuses. So there's a lot of technical stuff that is going on in the new CBA, but they've agreed to it.
Well, I don't think the GMs are real smart to begin with. They keep overplaying for players. they never learn their lesson, and it just goes on every year like it. And they said they're going to close the LTIR. They're not closing nothing. The owners like it. As long as the owners like it, nothing's changing when it comes to LTIR anyway. But any answers to my Kaprizov situation?
The most common one by a couple of different people was to make him the captain. That was really the only response.
Just the captain. Well, he should be the captain. He's an assistant captain right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for more than that. I want him to be more vested in the team, so he has a significant interest in how the team fares. And I don't know how we can do that, but he's got to be able to get some authority somewhere to make decisions for the Wild, whether it's making lineups, being in charge of who Billy hires and fires for a coach. Now, I've seen that before. And hopefully they'll think about that because, you know what I think? I'm not even going to go over it again. We have to build a winning culture. And I have seen nothing, nowhere on Anaheim with Troy Terry, Gavin McTavish. And I don't know if they're talking to him because I've seen nothing. But, you know, with my plan, we're getting 4 50-point players for under $10 million. And, yeah, we're giving up some picks and some players, but it all makes sense to me, especially Anders Lee. We could get him for just a couple of picks. Well, I mean, a couple players. And he would do so much to improve our team in front of the net, as I talked about last week. And who knows what's going on with Buffalo? I mean, God, I feel sorry for their fans. They're a mess. And I can actually see a lot of players saying they want out of there. And when you make a trade for 2 fourth-liners, and he's an upcoming star. I mean, I could see him going 50 goals a year in a few years. You know, he's got the talent. And you put him on a good team, you know, I think Utah's going to be a surprise team in Central. I think they're making the playoffs and they're going to raise some hell this year because they are just loaded up. And now that they got, well, what's his name from Buffalo? They just traded for him. Peterka. That's a hell of an addition, and they gave up nothing for him. I just don't know what Buffalo is seeing and where they're going. And, you know, the players all know what's going on. And I can see a lot of bad things happening for the Buffalo fans, and I feel sorry for them because Buffalo's a mess. In fact, you know what, Seth? I could take a few of our fans and you and me. We could turn that team around in a heartbeat. I'm not kidding.
So here's what I would assume is happening in regards to like Troy Terry and Mason McTavish.
Yeah.
If they are indeed available, I'm sure like if a player like that becomes available, you're going to at least call. But what a lot of times happens is the ask is too high. Let's say if you're trying to get both, maybe they say, well, Zeev Boyum's got to be the centerpiece of it. If that's the case, then Billy says, okay, we're not going to meet that. And in the case of the Peterka trade, Marco Rossi was offered.
Yep.
The Wild were willing to add more to the deal to make it happen. And Buffalo said no.
Yeah, I know.
So
isn't that scary?
The old the old adage, it takes two to tango. And
Absolutely.
you may inquire, they probably inquired on Tage Thompson too. And again, the ask was probably way too high.
Well, we'll find out. I mean, Billy's not done making moves. I know that.
He better not be.
Yeah, God, I hope not.
Well, then again, let's talk about this for a second.
Okay.
So, Freddie Gaudreau off the roster. Now, that does subtract a center off the table, but that also does, I think at this point, Liam Ogren's pretty much a lock to make the roster.
He should be.
So, you add him in. Declan Chisholm gone. And now with Brodin hurt, as I said, you're looking at Carson Lambos and David Juracek on the roster too. So this is kind of what I think a lot of people were hoping to get, was an opportunity for these guys to come in and make impacts. And if they do, then that ends up being better than what you would have gotten on the free agent market in theory.
Absolutely. And I had Lambos in my trade packages. I no longer have Lambos in my trade packages. Seth brought up a very good point about the injury situation that we always have. And hopefully this is Lambo's time. Because you know what, as Jeremy was talking about, he's a big kid. He can skate. You can't walk him too much. I mean, he's still a rookie, but I would so much rather have him than Bogle on the team and make Bogle the 7 if he's got to be here. But we'll just see what happens. I mean, Billy's not done. And I really don't want to get into anything until we see what he's actually done for the team. So far, I don't like anything he's done. But we'll see what happens. I mean, a lot of moves to be made because we need at least 3 50-point players to be Stanley Cup contenders. And really, we should probably have 4. And we have to assume that Hines is going to try and work his way out of playing the kids because that's what he does. And hopefully Billy puts a stop to that. Because the kid's got to play. It's plain and simple. Every time you put a kid on the team, you're saving yourself $6 million from a player. And we have 4 of them right now that all could be Calder Cup contenders, with Zeke being the top and maybe Urhoff. I mean, the more I'm reading about Urhoff, his two-way game, I guess, is really good. I can't wait to watch him so I can give you my opinion. But from everything I'm reading, Urhoff's two-way game is excelled. So that's, I think Urhoff is going to be a 50, 60-point player this year. I think he's going to be penciled into the second line simply because of the way the contract is written. That if he doesn't like how he's treated, he's going back to Russia, and Billy's not going to let that happen. And they should. They got to give him at least 20 games to see what he can bring. And then you move him up or down accordingly. But you got to put him in a position to so that he can succeed. Now we just need a couple wingers. And we need a 4th line center. Because, my 3rd line, I got Hartman, Foligno, and right now Trennan. I'm not sure, Trennan isn't that the best in skating. And, I want to reproduce the Grief line. And I'm not sure Trennan is capable of doing that, so we have to look at somebody else. And my 4th line is not the 4th line of how the Wild work now. They never play less than 13 minutes. And as I've told you, I'm playing my best players on the penalty kill, the power play. I'm changed a lot of things. And we'll get it all into that once Billy has made his moves and we see what happens. Because I know Billy's not done. When he moved Gaudreau, that was for Cap. So he's looking at something big. We'll see what happens. It could be what's the kid from Colorado that they trade for who wants out? They traded for him last year after the Rant.
Marty Nietzsche's.
Nietzsche's, yes, Nietzsche's. He wants out. He doesn't. He said he doesn't fit in there, so that could be a possibility too. And he's a nice player. I like him. I wouldn't mind having him on our team. And I've been reading a lot that Snuggerud has taken Jordan Kyrou's place in the lineup. That's how much I think of Snuggy. That could be another possibility. I mean, you know, he's a 60, 70-point player. Fits right in. He's got wheels like rockets. He can really skate. So, you know, there's a lot of things that can happen yet. We'll just have to wait and see what goes on. Well, with that, what else we got? We got any questions? Comments?
Yeah, Nathan wanted to know, can or will the Wild match an offer sheet on Rossi?
To be honest, Seth and I have talked about this for a couple of weeks. I think they're doing that on purpose so that they can get a first, second, and third for the picks. Because to get Rossi, you're going to have to pay him $7.5 million. Because you're the last one standing. And then that way, Billy gets a first, second, third round pick for moving Rossi. And if the offer isn't high enough, well, then he just matches it and they'll trade him by mid-season. Because, you know, Billy's not about 5'9" players, which is absolutely ridiculous. But it is what it is, and that's what we got to deal with as Wild fans. Anything else?
Do you think the Wild sign Brock Besser?
I hope not. And I'll tell you why. I've been told by two reliable sources Brock Besser has lost a step. And if that's the case, I don't want anything to do with him. The reason he didn't perform last up to his normal is because he has lost a step. You know, and his two-way game is poor. You know, he's like a minus 56 or something like that. I don't remember. But I would definitely do a hard pass on Besser now. And one is the hockey guy. I don't know if anybody watches the hockey guy, but he's a Vancouver fan big time. And he's even said that he's lost a step. Of course, well, we all know Billy doesn't care if you can skate. Just ask Nyquist. Oh, I'm trying not to talk bad about Billy. I really am, but you know, it is what it is. Any more questions?
Let's see here. We kind of answered that one. Trav, I wouldn't be shocked if Billy trades or signs a backup and leaves Jesper in Iowa for the season.
Oh God, I hope not.
They're gonna get a goalie, but it's with the context of if Gustafsson or Jesper get hurt, who do you have behind them?
Well, that's a good question.
I know Samuel Levi has gotten a lot of eyes.
Yeah, and I like him.
Rightfully so. I don't know if he's ready for NHL starts yet. I don't think he is.
Levi? No.
So what I think would be prudent would be to get somebody who can be in Iowa and can come up if, for instance, like let's say Gustafsson gets hurt. Then you have Jesper make the starts, but then you need somebody to back him up.
You know, actually, I think Iowa did sign the goalie. I think they have 3 goalies signed for Iowa now. I'm trying to think of the kid's name. I'll look it up. I should have looked it up already, but I think Iowa signed a goalie this summer. Maybe you can look that up real quick.
Yeah, I'm checking. I think you're right. Yeah, and Dan is saying maybe Troy Grosnick. It doesn't need to be anybody. It doesn't need to be anybody like crazy. I'm not talking about going and getting like a top free agent off the market. Just somebody who is capable of playing at both levels.
Which normally is a retread that shouldn't be starting anyway. There's a lot of them out there on the market right now.
Well, the name that I just thought of that I see on the free agent market is, what about a guy like Alex Lyon?
I don't know. I haven't watched him enough to say whether it's good or bad. What's the save percentage?
This past year it was right around 9, but he was with Detroit. They have they've got Gibson now. They had Talbot. They've got a bit of a mess on their hands. I don't know. It's something that it wouldn't surprise me at all if they do get somebody. It'll be a name maybe that has a little experience, but it doesn't have to be for anything crazy. It doesn't have to be anything for more than like league minimum.
True. Let me ponder that. I'll give you a real answer next week. Let me check into it. Alex Lyon is an interesting pick. Any more questions? Thanks, Trav.
Oh, Jay, the NHL might as well have 0 preseason games and going to 84. Do you agree?
Seth and I talked about this earlier. Going to 84 games takes away from the history of the NHL. It's always been 82 games. The only reason they raised it 2 games is their greed, money. It's just, it's terrible what they're doing to the game. And, Don Cherry, I don't know if any of you remember Don Cherry, but he talked about this on NHL Canadian broadcast about the referees and what the owners are doing to the game. He got fired for it, but it's all coming true. And maybe we could look that up and play that next week's show, because this was a long time ago that Don Cherry brought this up. I'm trying to think. It was late 80s, I think. And everything he has said has come true. And, I'm really worried about the game. Cap going up, ticket prices are going up. A family of 4 costs them $500 now to go to a game. It takes the blue collar family away from, supporting their team. It's just for the rich. And that's a sad thing. When I started going to hockey games, I would sell my C-cord suck buttons, sell them out, and I'd go get my $20 ticket. and it's just the way I hustled back as a kid to go to the games. And of course, you can't do that now. But the NHL's at their pinnacle, but I can only see bad things going on from here. Changing it to 84, there's no reason for it other than greed. And they're not addressing the goalie, or not the goalies, but the refs, is a terrible thing. The refs were so bad last year, and it's only going to get worse because they didn't address it. The refs got to have accountability. That's plain and simple. And when I write my response back to Frank Saravalli, that's what I'm going to talk about. And when I do it, I'll let everybody know so you can see how my comment in context with Frank Saravalli. With that, I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch me rant and rave and listen to Seth. I'm well on my way to breaking all the YouTube records. And I'm really thankful. I really am. That, we'll see you next Sunday. Bye, everybody.